Hey everybody, how are you doing? I am just popping in today because I thought a video would be an easier way to communicate to this question of Lisa's about how to teach sight words. Okay, I bet you guys are curious about that, and I just misplaced my dry erase board. Isn't that classic? So here, I got it. Okay, so before I go into my dry erase board, I want to share with you a few things you need to have as a background before you start teaching, so to speak, sight words, okay? In other words, I actually don't want you to do any explicit teaching or practice of high-frequency words, which often people call sight words, until a certain thing happens. Can you guess what it is? Anybody out there ready to? What is a prerequisite for teaching sight words? It's the thing that we emphasize the most in all of Reading Simplified. Can you guess what's in the teacher's brain? It's not much lag time. Well, or there's too much lag time probably, and you don't have much time to type. So I'll just go straight into it. Don't teach sight words until you have a student with a good sound-based decoding system in place. In other words, they need to understand the alphabetic principle that our written language is a code for sound, and they need to, sorry about my phone, and they need to be able to blend, and they need to be practicing sound-based blending. They don't have to be a master at it. They don't have to be super fast at it, but it has to be deep in their psyche, and it also has to be their default approach. That's right. Yeah, we want. Well, they don't actually, Lisa, have to know all their sounds, but that's a good possibility. They may very well know all their sounds. I like that. That's thoughtful. They might know many of them, and they don't necessarily have to know all of them. Because if they have a default approach to attacking a word based on sound-based decoding, they may still be kind of confused about Z and CH, and certainly they don't necessarily know OA and IGH. But even if they don't know all the consonants and the short vowels, you might still get to the point where you're ready to teach sight words. But it's really important that they can automatically, when they look at a word, they don't try to look at the way it looks, like, oh, that's got a tall letter, or they don't look at the pictures. They're not guessing, but they look at a word and they try to blend the sounds left to right. That's when you're secure that they have a strong sound symbol approach, decoding approach to language. Then you can start thinking about teaching, so to speak, the sight words, okay? The reason that's so important is that we're actually, with those beginners especially, or anyone who's struggling, we are setting up brain waves for how our code works, and connections, neural connections, and we want the connection to be that sound and symbol is linked. And if they look at words and try to memorize them without that connection, and they just see like a short, a squirrely, a tall letter, if they see that, it actually goes to a different part of their brain. And that's how people become poor readers. So it's starting the pathway from the beginning with a sound-based decoding approach is so important, because otherwise what you're doing is undoing damage or misguided neural pathways, really. And that's what I work with most of the time as a reading tutor, is kids who've started out thinking sort of a quasi-code. They know some sounds, maybe the beginning sound, but then the rest of it they kind of guess based on maybe a chunk at the end, maybe the tall letters, just various things that are mostly visual, and they just can't sustain that. Once they start to get to 500 words or 1,000 words, or certainly 20,000 words, the brain cannot memorize that without making those sound symbol linkage. So, okay, good. Yes, individual sounds. They need to hear. Lisa says so. She meant that they need to be able to perceive the individual sounds, and then they need to put them together. So not just the phonemic awareness of perceiving them and segmenting them, but they need to be able to blend them. So Sally, thank you for saying that. Makes so much sense. See if my little technology will enable you to. Yeah, that comes up on the screen. trying new things. Okay. So, so that's number one. That's essential, and that's very radical, and I really hope it gets through, especially to the kindergarten teachers and parents. The second thing is that the main way I like to teach high-frequency words or sight words is through rereading. So it's best if they read guided reading with you, and they practice the decoding, and they work through it. Then you model how to read it, and they listen to you through the whole text or a selection of the text, then they go and practice it over and over again. So why is that superior? Well, it's doing a lot more than just learning the individual sight words, and it's sometimes easier than learning them in isolation. So they can, when they're rereading, they can get better at fluency, like reading everything as a connected text. They can get better at just their confidence. They get closer to what real reading is supposed to be really like. And so all that can happen as they also see the word what. If the word what is in the text 5 times and they read it once originally, you read it once to them and they read it 3 more times, they've seen that, how many did I come up with? 4 times 3, or 12 times or 20 times? Then it's an easy way, in other words, for it to stick. So the primary tool that we use, basically, if you think about the Reading Simplified lesson, starting with the rereading, that's one of the main goals early on, particularly, is just to build up a bank of high-frequency words. First, you want to get the 25 in, then 50, then 100. When you're working with 100 high-frequency words, you're really golden. You can read a lot more books that way. And then you work towards 500, 1,000, and by 4th grade, you want 4th graders to recognize about 4,000 words automatically. So it does have to happen quickly. So if you teach all those in isolation, how can that really happen? In fact, we know that good readers recognize, or people that have a propensity to become a good reader, they can learn a word in about 1 to 4 exposures. So many kids, however, I know you're dealing with this, and I am too right now, they can't learn their high-frequency words that fast. So if you've done the 2 prefaces that I prompted at the beginning, was first, if you've done, make sure they have a strong sound symbols decoding approach. That's their default mechanism. And you've done lots of rereading and stuff is still not sticking. What do you do then? So that's really the only question that I want to answer right now. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So after those 2 things, then use the same tools that we have been teaching you, like write it, okay? So you can either ask them to write it and see what they do. So let's write the word said. Said. You know what? That is such a good guess because it is an S sound, but it's actually a weird, actually you leave it there. You leave it there and you say, well, it's kind of a weird thing. This is the in said. Isn't that funny? It doesn't come up very often like that. I bet a long time ago they might have said said, but now it's just said. So how would you fix this? Okay. And I want you to do it in a different color. Said. Okay. Say each sound separately. Said. And you can even underline that. So have them underline it. Maybe they box it. So let's look at that. What is different about said? This is kind of easy. Drop my pen. This is easy. This is easy, but what is tricky? Okay, so let's look at that. And what sound is that again in the middle of said? Oh, so this is eh. Interesting. Okay, so I want, same thing we do with read it and write it. Let's erase our sounds as we say them. S, eh, d. The other way of doing it is to, instead of asking them to write it, if you don't want them to write it wrong, is to say, well, we're going to read this word, but always do a different color, initially anyway. And what word is this? Do a different color for the funny thing, for the funny spelling. Usually there's only one part that's a funny spelling. So what's this word? And they say said. You know, that does look like A, but in this case, it is eh. So try it again. Said. Yes, have you remember seeing that word? Said, he said, she ran fast. So notice what is funny about this word. So you get them to notice it, observe it. Okay, so let's draw a box around it. That eh is just weird. So we're going to erase it. ed. Do you remember the eh, that funny eh? Try to write it again. And so they try to write it ed. But say they do it wrong and they can't remember the whole thing. You just say, you got part of it. This, remember, this was the eh in that word. So you're always, again, using sounds. I'm not really saying AI is eh, because then I'm throwing out a lot of different sounds, but I just stick with this is eh, okay? And then they finish it. And they can maybe dot it, ed, or they can draw a box around it, getting their attention. You might even want to ask them, this comes from Seeing Stars, Nancy Bell from Linda Mood Bell's program. Okay, so now I want you to close your eyes and create that word on a imaginary blackboard in front of you. Can you imagine yourself drawing the word said on the blackboard? Okay, now tell me what color you wrote it in. And you just really want to draw their visualization skills out and see if they can create a picture of it. And one way to check that they have done it correctly is to ask them to read the word, to just give you the letter names. So this is the one exception where I do allow the letter names. So they could say, okay, so read, how would you spell that word again? What you see that you've written? S-A-I-D. Or they can go backwards, D-I-A-S. And then that really has more chance that it's kind of established. So that may be a tool that can help those kids who just seems like it's not sticking. You might really have to draw a lot of questions out from that. Like, okay, so let's make the eh in said a different color. Let's say, what color is the word right now? Oh, it's green. Okay, so I want it to be blue, just the eh. Can you make that? Okay, do you see it? No, you just talk them through. All right, so we got this question. If I can pull it up here. Lisa said, I had the same thought last night, test today, and lucked out. Amelia Bedelia and the baby had all the words. I had her read them, then visualize them for her spelling purposes. She closed her eyes, thought about it, and got them. And in her test today, and aced her test in class today as well. On the new list, I'm going to do the 2-color writing for sure. Awesome. Lisa, that's so cool. Yeah, so really a lot of what we already do in the field with high frequency words or sight words is good. It's just that you have to be really careful. Back to number 1. Is that child doing this work based on visual cues or sound symbol cues? And then the other thing to keep in mind is that you can always draw. They're really, they're not irregular, 100%. So there's a lot of phonetic information that's there. So let's not ignore it. Okay. So where is a tricky one, right? But it's just the air. This is still phonetically regular, and was is not what you would expect, but it's just this is the only thing that's kind of odd. This is often z at the ends of words, so that's not too bad. So getting them to just connect, okay, it looks like was, you're right, but this is was. And so then they might draw it again. Now, what's the funny thing? What was hard about that was? And then sometimes saying the words the way they look is helpful. So especially with the schwa, this is kind of getting into something different, but when you get to multisyllable and you're teaching the schwa and how it's just an unpredictable vowel sound, you can say, well, this looks like it looks like a bout. But we really say it kind of sloppy. We put all of our stress on the ending chunk, bout, and so it's just bout. But when I write it about, so I can remember that tricky vowel sound. Some of you guys probably do things like this too. How do you spell Wednesday? When you're starting to spell Wednesday, how many of you say it the way it looks? Wednesday. I do it for beautiful. B-A-U-tiful. B-A-U. See, that just helps me. So those are some things that I do regularly, and then I move kids if they need it and stuff isn't sticking with the rereading. Then I move them to apps because they don't need a lot of instruction or my time to learn high frequency words as long as we've gone over the sound-based, the sound symbol approach to those words. So one of my favorites is eggy words. I'll see if I can show you. Maybe I take this light off. It'll be easier this way. Ask me if you have any other questions or comments. Let's see if I get it going. There's a UK version, an Australia version, and a American version, so that's nice. And you can select your speed, whether you want the things flying by fast or slow. So we'll go slow since we're beginners.
Reading Eggs is proud to present Eggy Words. Tap on the red play button. Welcome to Eggy Words
Maybe
from
this won't
Reading
work.
Eggs. There are 10 exciting chicken run. Swipe the word A.
So I'm given the word A, and the whole Eggy Words goes in order of frequency of fry words. So if you can set it so you can go to a harder level. So you have to tap if it is A, but there's a lot of distractors, and so it makes it a game.
A.
I'm going to try to do this. Oh, that says but, and that's a potato. So what happened? I messed up on that one, right? That one says A, and so you get the idea, and it goes a lot faster if you want to. In fact, my 9-year-old who knows all of her sight words was playing it the other day at a high speed just for fun because it was, you know. Another good one is sight words Hangman. These are on my freebie on Reading Simplified on the margin. If you haven't gotten the 7 Tops apps, this is listed at the bottom. So again, you can pick the high frequency words that your kids need, which is so helpful. Some need the first 25, some need the 75 to 100. So when you can find an app that does that, that's really helpful. So there, I think I'm given the word. Okay, right here it says repeat the word. I got it on silent.
Shoes.
Shoes. So it calls out the word, and then I just have to tap the right one. But say, oops, I miss it.
Shoes.
So it repeats it again.
Shoes.
I keep missing it.
Great job.
But that's
Busy.
more of my Hangman. The next word was busy, so I'm going to get the wrong one.
Busy.
Oh, so my Hangman's coming in, you see, but I'm going to get it right, busy.
Impressive. Picture.
Okay, so that's sight words Hangman. So Lisa asked, what was the app again? This one, sorry, it's so bright. This one is Reading Eggs. I think you can find it under Eggy 100 or Reading Eggs. And the other one was sight word Hangman. But there are others. I just don't want you to pick an app where it emphasizes the letter name. So I don't want it to say R, the word R, like how are you doing? A-R-E-R. You just want it to be connected to sounds. This is another fun one, Go. It's got a little line through it, and it's similar to the Eggy one. You slash them if they're the right one. There's like a ninja look to it.
Help.
Little.
Away. Where.
Oh, I got that wrong. So it's fun. What kid doesn't like to slash things? So are there any other questions about these high frequency words? So make sure the sound symbol base is strong. Do guided reading and then rereading to build their sight word vocabulary, and that will work for most kids. But the kids that have weak visual processing or really weak phonological processing, it still may be something extra. You can do things like this, where you draw attention to the sound that's funny and have them write it and say the sounds, and then also try to visualize it if that's not enough. Visualizing can take up some time, and it does encourage you to end up saying the letter name, so I don't usually go to that first off. I see if this will work. And of course, any kind of worksheet you have that breaks it up, but you just over and over again writing without your oversight that they're actually thinking in terms of sounds can be pretty wasteful in terms of instructional time. So it depends on the kid. The last app was just called Go, Sally. And you know what? That's probably not what it's really called. That's all I see. I can look into that and post here in this later instead of take up your time. Let me see if I can go back to the home and see if there's any more information. Home. Oh, Sorry it's so loud. Sight words ninja. Sight words ninja. Sight words ninja. Okay. Oh, and I forgot another one. Another really good one is Get Sights. If you go to Get Sights, like SIGHTS, that one is really good. But that involves a teacher or a helper or a parent. How many of you guys have used that? Let me know, because I think that's really good. That one is just, let's see if it works. It's less of a game, as more of a quick assessment, but it can be a quick practice. So say my student is seeing these words. Okay, maybe if I go back here, you can see it better. And the teacher or the parent, or maybe a really strong reader, has to say yes or no, they got it right. So the word is what, and say I got it right, I just press yes. We, and I got it wrong, say I got it wrong. No. Your, yes. Said, yes. Can, yes. Not, yes. When, wrong. Said, yes. All, yes. We, yes. But, yes. Your, yes. Okay, I won't keep going because it could take for a while. But what happens is with this one, it will track. And if you have accurately done a certain word over several days, then it'll drop it from the list. And if you keep missing it, it'll keep giving it back to you in a cycle. So it's very strategic. It's good for how people learn. We need staggered across the course of the day. And basically, that's another really good tip. If you don't already do that, when you have a kid with a really, really difficult case of learning high frequency words, show them things across the course of the day, and not just show them, but actually have them do something with it. The more they kinesthetically write, in fact, it's not just any kind of kinesthetics, it's actually writing that's going to get you the optimal results, where they do things like this, z. That's going to get it stuck faster than moving things. They've actually done tests, researchers have done tests. How does writing something compare with typing it? How does it compare with moving little tiles? And actually, kinesthetically, writing is superior to getting stuff into long-term memory. So staggering it throughout the day, doing lots of kinesthetics. So you could do rainbow writing, which I know is really popular, but just get them to say the sounds when they do it. Was. So Lisa, the last one I mentioned was get sights. It's just called sights, I think, but if you go to getsights.com, you'll find it. I wonder how I can add a comment. You guys have all this access to comment. Oh, let's see here. I don't. If anybody knows what I'm saying, it can type getsights.com. That will be good. The other ones that I mentioned were Aggie 100, or Sight Word Ninja, or Sight Words Hangman. There are probably others, because just seeing a word and then trying to identify it, that does not conflict with Reading Simplified principles, unless they shouldn't be doing that because they don't have the strong sound symbol decoding base. Okay, so I hope that is helpful, and if you have any questions, or if you've learned something along the way that I didn't include, please let us know. I'm going to be posting this into the Teacher's Lounge so people can get it there too, but either way, either place, give us your experience, your successes, your challenges, other apps, other tools. That would be awesome. Thanks.